Welcome back. And just as we mentioned today, we are dedicating this episode of our breakfast show to bring you more about the historic visit of King Salman bin Abdulaziz to Egypt, and actually taking place today. And we have many important issues to be discussed. Well, first of all, allow me to welcome my guest for today, Dr. Youssef Mazher. He's member of the Egyptian Council for Foreign Affairs. First of all, good morning, sir.
Thank you. Good morning.
Definitely, we're going to talk about this visit from different domains. But
yes.
First of all, the most important part that each and every Egyptian citizen is concerned with is the outcome of this visit. Let's start by this.
Yes, I think that's very interesting for our viewers. This is a very important visit because it's a mega visit with mega projects. And I would like to start with one item which has not happened before in any of the relations between us and any other country. And as you know, we have very, very special relations with Saudi Arabia. And I think the heading of that would be the development of Sinai. Now, people have talked about Sinai before, but it's the first time that a reigning sovereign would come with a complete package to develop one of the most important parts of Egypt. Why is it important? That we keep on repeating this because of its position, but also for the fact that, because politics also come into this, to keep Sinai safe, you really have to develop it fully. And development before has been in the form of studies, individual things like tourism by itself, or a bit of mining by itself. But what I see coming here is a mega project with number of main prongs. One of the prongs is the question of development. Development means roads in Sinai, water. There are a large amount of conduits being dug under the canal now. So even though we're digging them, finally they have to irrigate and start agriculture, etc. Industry, the traditional tourism, and mining. I'd like to say that mining in Sinai goes back to ancient Egypt, and the mines of Sinai are gold, they are chemicals, they are building materials. So you need a really big push, and I think this is the first time that we see that the development of Sinai will go away from the traditional mini projects or sectorial development, because we can't depend on that. We depended on tourism. Tourism isn't always successful, not only in Egypt, everywhere. France, look at, take Paris for example. What's going to happen to tourism in Paris in the next few months? So we have to have different stands to stand on.
Alternatives.
Alternatives, yes. So Sinai as a whole, but there's also something very specific. We hear and we have read about a new university which is going to be for Sinai and in Sinai, as far as the news has come, that it can be located in the Tor. El Tor is a very important city in Sinai. Actually, it's the capital of the south. Traditionally, everything that came to Egypt, this was door to Egypt. The pilgrims came through. Pilgrims that came by ship before. Trade came into the... So boosting that part of Egypt is very, very important. Now this university also has got characteristics, the way we identify. It is not and should not be a typical Egyptian university. It has to be international. It has to be on the model of some of the... We have something like this in Alexandria, Senghor, but this is small. So it has to be international. It can be, because with the input of Saudi Arabia, with the particular emphasis on globality, this can be very useful, because you are going to start developing people most probably out of Sinai itself, so they don't have to travel all the way to Alexandria or to Upper Egypt to go and get their work. It will also have a large, let's say, aspect of research work, practical research, talking about the mining or finding the problems of the water or problems of irrigation. So I think these, let's say, this is just examples. the whole visit is full of very important
But we
projects.
have many potentialities.
Yes,
and we have many
yes.
different domains.
It's the first time that we get such a package.
But talking also about how Saudi Arabia supported Egypt since 2011, definitely,
Yes.
and we have seen how this, we can see this very clearly, actually, especially when we have seen President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi in Saudi Arabia, different talks in different sectors, how they supported, whether we are talking about financing different projects or supporting, definitely support itself, not only economic support. This is something of great importance because we always talk about that these two are the major powers in the
Correct.
region, Saudi Arabia and Egypt.
Correct. One thing I want to say, politics, of course, there are little ups and downs in politics, but this is a win-win situation for both. Each one of these large blocks of the Arab world, actually of the petroleum world also, they have to stand together. There can be slight differences every now and
We
then.
can never reach
No, I mean,
the full
it would not be
agreement,
useful
yes.
even. I mean, a complete consensus
Yes.
is not useful. You have to have different points of view because one point of view might be better than
To
the other.
complete each other.
Exactly. So I think that this is a long-standing relationship. It goes back to Mecca. It goes back to the yearly pilgrimage. It goes back to the development of Saudi Arabia historically in education. Egypt has a
Well,
very...
sir, talking about education, because this is one of the most important, the top priority now to any country
Yes.
wants to build
Yes.
future, must take education into consideration
Correct.
and actually put it as top priority.
Yes.
So talking about the mutual cooperation, and we know Saudi Arabia has always been interested when it comes to education, having universities, actually, we have seen this on the ground.
Yes, yes. I want to say something that Saudi Arabia also has got some very novel ideas. There's the city, King Abdulaziz city, which is a science city. It's science and education.
Exactly.
So it's a very good model. It's even if people don't talk about, let's say, Silicon Valley in the United States. They talk about this because it's part of our environment, and it's working at a very high efficiency. So having some of these new aspects of education in this whole agreement. Don't forget that Egypt, traditionally, it's difficult to break off all these ties. You know that the Mahmal, the annual pilgrimage, used to take the whole Kiswa, the whole cladding of the Kaaba. It used to go out of Egypt, and we should never forget that every year one of the biggest ceremonies here in Egypt was, all this was sewn in Egypt until they made their own plant. It was sewn in Egypt with gold blade. It was the first camels took it there. It went every year, and it came back. I want to say that Saudi Arabia brought it back and gave it to the Khedive who was ruling at that time. So there's so much interaction. And if you take statistics, you'll find that the number of Egyptians working there is tremendous. And also, it has not been haphazard. I mean, we have seen in other parts of the world, also in the Gulf, there are other countries which are competing for the manpower, all the Asian countries, for example. But Saudi Arabia has been steadfast. It's always been, they know what they can get from here. We are trying to give them the right people. So
the right person in the right place at the right
exactly,
time.
you see. With some of the other countries, some of the labor coming from the Far East is cheaper. But Saudi Arabia looks at religion, looks at beliefs, look at ways of living. The Egyptian character fits in very nicely in the whole structure of the thing. So there are many things. I mean, I was a bit worried about talking about this visit because the visit is a mammoth.
But also talking about this period of time, choosing
Yes.
this period of time for this historic visit.
Yeah.
Definitely it is a significance of something. It can deliver, or it delivers a message to the
Yes.
whole world.
Look, I think it's delivering a message that even though things can go wrong in the Arab world, and they can go wrong because of political interference or let's say gains, here is something that cannot go wrong because it's based on very important, solid facts. And there is a feeling there's a brotherly feeling. Whenever there was a problem in Saudi Arabia, our president got onto a plane and was there. And even many of his expressions saying, we can be there now. All these are demonstrations. They are not political, they are friendly, they're brotherly. So that when Egypt needed Saudi Arabia, there was a response. And it's not the first response. Now there's even a bigger response. When Saudi Arabia got its problems with its neighbors, Egypt was saying,
and President Sisi mentioned this in his speech, that the stability of Saudi Arabia is a red line to Egypt.
Yes. These little statements are, let's say, political and actual situations.
Right.
So I think I'm glad that this is our biggest partner now, because it's a very reliable partner. It's based not on politics. It's based on real facts, on tradition, and everything that makes a good partnership.
Well, again, let me say that still we recognize all what is happening when it comes to all of the Arab countries, all the challenges we are facing, and the most important part, again, our relation with the Arab countries, and also the relation between these two superpowers, talking about Saudi Arabia and Egypt, when it comes to any challenge happening in the region. Let's move on together to a quick break, and we'll be back to resume our breakfast show.
وجدت دوما مصر من أشقائها العرب مواقف تبرهن على أخوة حقيقية وصداقة وفية.
زايد بن سلطان حكيم العقالة: لن يكون النفط العربي أغلى من الدم العربي. لا وجود للأمة العربية بدون مصر، ولا يمكن لمصر أن تستغنى عن أمتها العربية.
كانت مصر ولا زالت خط الدفاع الأول عن الكثير من الأخطار التي أحدقت بالمنطقة.
دولة الإمارات ستبقى دائما مع مصر.
تضامننا العميق مع جمهورية مصر العربية الشقيقة.
أؤكد مجددا دعم بلادي بأن لا محدود.
أثبتت الأحداث على مدى تاريخ علاقاتنا رسوخها.
نريد مصر آمنة سالمة قوية مزدهرة. نحن مع مصر.
قوة مصر وعزتها هي قوة وعزة الأمة العربية والإسلامية.
جمهورية مصر العربية الشقيقة كانت ولا تزال وستظل قلب الأمة النابض وحصنها المنيع.
تحديات كبيرة، لكن مصر أكبر من كل التحديات.
خالص الشكر والتقدير باسمي وباسم شعب بلادي.
Welcome back. And still we are talking about the historic visit of King Salman bin Abdulaziz with our guest today, Dr. Youssef Mazher. And actually this break is very, very interesting, talking about the collaboration, the cooperation between all of the Arab countries, the Arab leaders, who now just, again, what I've said before the break, talking about the role of Egypt and Saudi Arabia and the challenges we are facing. Definitely now, we all understood that the challenges taking place in the region will not be solved or can be confronted with the international intervention. Definitely, we need to sit all together. This definitely with Saudi Arabia and Egypt. How do you see this?
Well, if you had listened very carefully to the statements were made by both leaders, it's much easier for countries to get together and operate if it's clear at the top exactly what is going on. And both statements were very, very detailed. It talked about the origin of the collaboration, how it should continue, how it cannot be disrupted, and it was a commitment. So it's easy for people to work, easy for the people working on projects. If you are working on projects and you don't know that these countries are bound together for let's say, eternity or for a certain period, then you won't be able to plan anything. But they've said here, now this is where the way we're going. We're linked together. It's a bond that cannot be put apart, whatever happens. It even mentioned how a bond can be broken by foreign intervention, and we're not going to look at this. So having a fixed policy and having it so clear at the top, people don't have to go back when these people negotiate. They don't have to go, oh, shall we have to ask the presidency whether this can go ahead or not. It's clear. You can do this, that, and that. And I think The good thing about this part of the world that the stability of statements, especially with countries like Saudi Arabia, is long-term. It's maybe in other countries it's a bit turbulent. Every time something happens, there's a new statement, a new friendship, a new bond. But here,
and we have seen this with some countries, like the United States. Every day they
it's
have
very volatile, and you cannot really work, or you have to be volatile like the volatility that exists. But having stability is very important, and we have it here. So I think it's going to be very easy for all those people working. I mean, if you talk about development of Sinai, there must be stability. If you're going to develop Sinai with Saudi inputs, whether it's projects or investment or anything you like, you must know that you've got a lifelong relationship, steady relationship. You cannot develop Sinai with somebody who will change tomorrow or will have another ideas tomorrow. So I think it's very comforting to listen to those two statements. I'm glad that the program brought them out in that clarity.
Sir, how do you feel about how each leader now, Arab leader, recognized the importance of the collaboration right now? And even if we are going to talk about investments, economy in general in each country, definitely this cannot be achieved alone with the country itself. We must talk about the challenges taking place around the country, talking about the borders. Definitely Saudi Arabia, they have their own challenges as well. What is happening in Yemen, all of the challenges they are facing, the oil prices, all of this, in addition, of course, to what is happening in Syria, in the whole region. Definitely these are things that one can say this is national security to all of the countries of the Arab region. So do you think that also this can be discussed definitely during this visit? We can reach consensus, for example, to achieve some, because definitely now we all recognize how important it is to work or to act as one man.
Correct. Well, let me make a small statement. People and countries don't always make the decisions that are good for them. It is evident that anybody seeing this happening can see that following this pattern, there will be security, there will be prosperity, etc. But not everybody knows what's good for them. And there are other people whispering in ears which might contradict. But I think that this relationship is clear. Anybody in their right sanity and with an agenda of Arab unity will follow this model. Let me say one thing, that this model also is changing. Don't forget that all the area of the Gulf and Saudi Arabia, with the decrease in the amount of production of oil, they have been thinking for a long time to deviate towards other sectors. And I worked at the beginning very strongly on a center which was sent up as Saudi Arabia to deviate from the importance of just having one source. So they had industrial development, they brought up industry, they even grew wheat to a large let's say, now. And this change, it's important that maybe Saudi Arabia can benefit a bit from Egypt. The change is that not only what's coming out of the ground, but also what can you do to sustain the economy. Should you produce? What should you produce? Do you have the manpower? If you don't have it, maybe it's available here in Egypt. And it should be in a good model. I mean, there's another model where some of our neighbors in the Gulf went into real estate, buildings, etc. It's good, but you need something for a big country, manpower, you need jobs. So just building a new city or a mega city or a brand new city doesn't solve the total long-term
So this is
problem.
Human resources,
Yes.
and the training itself.
Yes, that all comes up into that. And I think people will question, I mean, you've got to talk about this. Some people question, okay, you had an income of more than $100 a barrel. Now it's about a third of that. Can this make a difference? Of course it will make a difference, but countries can adjust. Countries can deviate. And it's this the time when countries come to the assistance of each other. So I think that one should not really worry about this. There's plenty. The budget is really comfortable. And if there is a gradual deviation or diversification, countries can exist with much less figures as before. In fact, these figures will give oil industry is not a big, let's say, work giver. The oil industry is drilling and then it's coming out of the ground and it's transported. If you deviate into the production industries, you have more manpower. So I think this can be a blessing. Doesn't seem at the beginning. It can be a blessing that as you deviate into a more larger economic base based on work, based on different productions, based on agriculture, you will also solve your manpower problem.
No, but it is also because I remember we always used to study that one of the most important privilege, the advantage of Egypt is human resources.
Yes.
So talking about the cooperation between Saudi Arabia and Egypt in this respect, training and also exporting, because this has always been one of the main challenges actually after the 2011, after the spring. So talking about, for example, the closed factories, we have a huge number of closed factories. Definitely exporting will be something of great importance when it comes to economy and the dollar price and all of these issues. You think we can have something in this respect as to move forward or a way of just getting out of this dilemma?
I think you've got a very good point there. We have, of course, over the time accumulated a large sector in industry and agriculture, and due to circumstances, it is not all completely working at full capacity. Now, one must be careful because the model of our industry might need to be changed a little bit to adapt to a model which is suitable to another partner. I'm sure that Saudi Arabia business or government can look at what we have and participate in it, not only in new, but also in revamping the old. But you must take into consideration the way they want to do it. They might not want to have it as completely state-operated economies or state-operated plants. Maybe they would like to have a bit more freedom. They would have a bit more private investment. So you've got to adapt. You cannot say, here's the dish, you eat it that way.
Well, definitely, the word flexibility is the key of success.
Yes.
To any organization, to anything. Just to cope with what is going on, the challenges of the two.
Yes.
Right, Dr. Youssef Mazher, member of the Egyptian Council for Foreign Affairs, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me on your program. Thank you.
And with this, we come to the end of our breakfast show for today, and later we'll bring you live coverage for the arrival of King Salman bin Abdulaziz to Egypt. This is one actually talking about this visit as a historic visit. We'll bring you live on air all what is related and the meetings of this visit actually. And we know that Egypt already received yesterday top official delegation, Saudi official delegation, in addition to the royal ceremonies, preparing for this historic visit. So still we have more to bring you on Now TV International. Thank you very much for joining us.